Welcome to another episode of Unicorn Chef. We don't keep track of how many episodes we've done, but we are well over 100 now, which means at least 100 different meals. I think most of them are good, other than the ones that Mike Ellis did. And more importantly, besides the joy that we bring to your home with making the kitchen more accessible, all of the donations that we've raised throughout the course of the program. Obviously, with the conflict in the Ukraine being on everyone's mind, with all of the loss of life with civilians, we started a charity campaign over at Scythe to raise money for the World Central Kitchen. So chefs over there in Ukraine feeding refugees and civilians. So if you check out the swag.scythe.io store, we have a Ukrainian section with explicitly all of the proceeds going to help out there. And it's going to be based off the unicorn in different Ukrainian colors holding a sunflower. But Matt, this is your show. We're excited to do this. So first question, what are you drinking?
Yeah, so I'm drinking, anyways, thanks for having me on. I'm drinking this thing called makgeolli, which is like a Korean rice wine. It's probably akin to beer, 5 or 6%. And so I'm going to pour it out now. But it's
fermented rice.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on it, but yeah, they use like some kind of yeast mold or something, and it's like rice. There's a great show on Netflix that talks about how it's made, and I can't recall it obviously, but if you do, you can just look up makgeolli. So, what are you drinking? Anything?
I'm just hydrating with water over here in my ICS Village water bottle. Everything's branded.
I should have worn a company shirt.
Well, we can talk about your company if you want.
Oh yeah, no, certainly. All right. Actually, so first, I think we talked about this, but I did forget to make rice, so I'm gonna go make rice first right now.
All right. So rice in the rice cooker.
Yeah. So where is the rice? So I was actually curious, about you as well. How did this kind of start?
How did the show start?
Yeah, I'm just curious about kind of the underpinnings and everything that kind of, led you to do this.
It was 2 years ago to the month. Pandemic happens, everything locks down. I've been cooking for a long time. I enjoy cooking. I've done some different cooking things out in the community. And with the pandemic, I kind of got a sense of the community sort of freaking out a little bit. And I started doing happy hours and costume contests and different things. And I thought, you know what? Why not just do once a week, completely amateur cooking show? So just bring in a different person so I don't have to come up with the recipes because I'm lazy. And away we go.
Oh, no, and generally, like who do you, how do you kind of choose the people, just very curious about that process.
How did I find you?
Oh yeah, through a Slack group so is it would you say mostly through that Slack group?
No. So in fact, I was talking to somebody about that earlier today. Probably more than half the guests I've never met, right? Like you and I at least had like a brief conversation on Slack because we were in a founders channel, right? But you and I really first met, 7 minutes ago?
Yeah, so we've been long friends.
Yeah, exactly. So the show is different folks coming on, cooking and showing off different things. I meet them in all sorts of random places. Like when I do meet people in person, if they show any inkling of interest in food, I'm like, hey, do you want to come on a cooking show? So that's it. We're booked out through September. So we always sort of have a running 6 to 8 month cast already set up. The show has expanded. We now have 3 other unicorn chefs that join me. So Mike Ellis, Alyssa Miller, and Caitlin Britka all also do shows. In fact, next week's show, since I'm out traveling and teaching, is going to be Caitlin with Brine. So we now have a whole staff and just continue to demonstrate different kinds of foods and highlight charities. And an example of how amateur the show is. We've just lost our guest.
Sorry, 1 second.
There you go.
My sister's calling me right now, so it is my nephew's birthday today. So shout out to Koa, big 6. So it's been a big day for him.
All right, so you got your rice going?
Yep. Okay, the other disclaimer is I just moved here maybe last month. And so I'm just like, I haven't really used these plugs, and I realized some of them are.
I'm not going to give you that one. We've had a guest who cooked the day of a move.
Wow. I would have definitely not done that.
I would have canceled it too.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, now I'm interested to try that. I haven't had that before.
Oh, it's great.
What's it called again?
Makgeolli.
Makgeolli?
Yeah. It's easy drinking. It's good. I don't know. The weird thing is like it looks like milk.
It does look like milk.
The taste of it, I don't know. It's like if you've had sake, it's kind of like cloudy sake, but just a bit weaker, a little bit sweeter, and it's easy to drink. And okay, so we're gonna make some kimchi jjigae today. One reason I chose kimchi jjigae, also I'll show, is because I have a kimchi jjigae tattoo right here, and so I didn't want to show that off. And so I was like, you know what would be the most fitting thing to make today? It would be kimchi jjigae, because it's literally also on my body. And then I think the one thing is right before this, I also did make some anchovy stock as well. And so if you want to, the way I like to do it, everyone has different ways, is that I like to just start getting the broth hot. The first thing I do is get that broth hot. And then before I even cut anything, I'll cut the pork up into pieces and then just like start cooking the pork down just for a while, just in whatever broth, or even just water, whatever you're doing, just to get it going. Sorry, my dog's right here. Can you move up for a second?
Okay, so we should have our broth already going.
Yeah, so I'll just like right now, I'm just gonna pour it in. And also, I would say like, I did feel bad when you asked for a recipe. I was like, oh man, I feel like I've never made kimchi jjigae that tasted the same twice. So hopefully that recipe is functional. So.
Well, I'm going to be making my broth with anchovy paste, black garlic shoyu, and fish sauce.
Wow, that's gonna taste really good. It's a lot fancier than mine. My broth, I just put some anchovies in it and some kelp, some like radish, and some ends of onions and garlics I used from earlier this week, and just cook it down maybe for, I don't know, 30-40 minutes. But yeah, I mean, curious as well. I don't know if I already asked you, but where are you based?
I'm based in Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay.
What about you?
In Brooklyn.
You're in Brooklyn?
Yeah. So it's nice. I don't know. There's a big backyard. Well, I call it my prison. It looks like a prison cell because the backyard is all concrete, so it definitely does look like a prison yard. So
I'm going to be in your neck of the woods in the middle of May. Not Brooklyn, but Manhattan.
For what?
One of my investors.
Yeah, so I mean, as we're doing this, I'll definitely plug part of the company as well. So also, I'll be curious to kind of understand what you're doing as well. But I would say July 2020, we started Copia Automation. Really just bring the concept of DevOps to industrial automation. And I don't know, it's been pretty fun. I always say that what better time to give up your health insurance and salary than in the middle of a raging pandemic. But thank God my girlfriend moved in with me at the same time as well to kind of offset some of that rent cost. But yeah, I mean, it's been pretty fun. The company now is around 22 people, 23, 22 people. We have an office in Manhattan, and it's sad because the office fits maybe 20, 25 people. And we thought we were going to hire more in New York, but ended up just being 5 out of the 20 something or New York. So we just have all of this empty space. And so it does feel nice.
Real estate.
Yeah, I mean, and I thought I was gonna get a better deal, and then they're like, yeah, the pandemic. It was like in November. They're like, the pandemic's letting up, so really no wiggle room on the rent. But we're in Flatiron area, and I'll say Flatiron area is a bit more affordable than like Soho for rent. Like maybe $30 a square foot. Kind of that is a significantly cheaper. But yeah, what I'm doing now is pork belly. Probably my favorite kind of pork. It's fatty. There's some meat on it. Um, and the extra piece I have, I'm probably gonna fry it up tomorrow, just like Korean barbecue style, some lettuce and eat that up. But I was curious, like what I don't even know what do you do? Like, what's your company? What's your backstory? Well, not the whole backstory, at least. Maybe we can get a backstory later, but at least on the company side.
Sure. Former Army officer. Started my own consultancy 9 years ago called Grimm. Grimm had a consulting request 6 years ago from a major retailer to build them a tool. I realized that the amount of effort it takes to go outside to get something custom built means there's a gap. So that tool became Scythe, which I spun out in 2018. So that's my full-time job. Scythe is a modular malware platform, so it's the ability to recreate any kind of threat. And then I co-founded a nonprofit called the ICS Village, where we do education awareness around industrial control systems.
Oh yeah. Speaking of industrial control systems, that's our target market. So.
Well then, look at that. Now we're really talking here on the show. So yeah, you should talk to the nonprofit because we love to feature startups with discussions around innovative technologies. And then we have our own conference called Hack the Capital, which is on the 4th of May.
Hack the Capital?
Yeah, Hack the Capital. It's our 5th year doing it. It's hybrid, but it's physically in Washington, D.C. And we bring experts and demonstrations to the different policymakers. The one we did last year, we had 7 members of Congress.
Wow. I would say hack the Capitol does seem ominous when I first hear that.
In the last year, people have made that comment, but we came up with that name years ago.
By the way, I'm putting my pork belly in here. I actually cook it out, especially if there's any like scum.
Yeah, you're a little short on the directions, so I'm just kind of
guessing. I'm sorry.
On my pan. I'm about to throw them in. I'm working with ground beef instead of pork. You can substitute different proteins.
Yeah. I'll give like clear directions, but one thing I do enjoy, like about doing this first, is that if there's any scum, especially if I need like fatty meat, you can kind of skim it off before. And I just feel like whatever broth you have, it adds an extra oomph. And I am using a separate cutting board because I just like don't want to rewash my main cutting board. Wash everything down.
So how much broth should we have?
So for me, I put in about 3 or 4 cups because I'm gonna have some leftovers for tomorrow.
Okay.
And pork wise, so I'll tell you, other thing is I'm terrible at recipes because I just keep eyeballing it and see when it tastes good. Pork, probably around, at this point, actually probably around a little less than half a pound of pork or whatever protein you like.
You need to watch a few of the old episodes. Pretty much every chef says the same thing. None of us measure anything.
Yeah.
The hardest part of the show is making up the recipe and be like, well, how much is it?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the worst part. Like when I make something and it comes out really good, I really desperately want to make the same thing again. But then I just go like, I don't remember what it was from last time. And I think that's like kind of the fun part of it is it's just not obviously like not being a professional chef or anything. It's just like going like, okay, I'm going to try something new and it's going to taste a little different every time. And sometimes it does come out terrible, but just put some more hot sauce in it. That's my, whatever you need.
Gochujang solves everything, right?
It does. No, one of my favorite college snacks is just getting hot rice, gochujang, soy sauce, and sesame seed, and just mixing it. It is like even cheaper than, maybe not even actually cheaper, but it's like my version of like top ramen. Do you put the meat in? Are you good on that?
Yeah, I'm frying up my meat with diced garlic, and onions. So I'm going to fry that all together, and then I guess that'll go in the broth.
Yeah. Yeah, and definitely, I do like it with a little oil in it. That's why I like pork belly because there's a little oil in the stew. It tastes, I think, extra good. And then when you're ready, we can just start working on some mise en place for the rest of it. Let me see if I have a. I'll bring out somebody's small place to store all my veggies in. The next thing I think we should definitely cut is the onions. And just let me know when you're good.
Yep. No, I'm rocking and rolling here. I'm just sauteing up. I didn't add any oil because I'm rendering the oil out of my ground beef to fry everything here. I also diced carrots and celery into my broth. So sort of gonna end up with like a bit of a mirepoix.
Nice. One thing I will see is my favorite kitchen tool other than my knife is a bench scraper because I get too lazy to pick everything up all the time with my hands, so I can just scrape it all up. But I'm curious, do you have a favorite kitchen tool or anything that you use?
I just really like my knife. So I got a really nice Santoku that Blenster's dad made for me. His name's Daryl Hibble.
Oh, that's someone made it for you. Wow.
Yeah.
So next, I'm probably gonna use, I don't know, half an onion. We'll see if we need more, but I think half an onion from the amount of stuff here is gonna be a good amount. You know, kind of when you're cooking as well, generally day to day, kind of what's your go-to cuisine? You know, do you have a go-to cuisine, anything like that?
I eat everything.
Do you have a favorite cuisine at least to eat then?
Nope, same thing. So whatever the mood is.
But you did mention that you ate I'm pretty familiar with Korean food. Is there anything for Korean food that sticks out to you? Anything that's
bulgogi.
So later, I don't know. Do you guys also eat? Do you make this into a mukbang as well later on, or
make a what?
Like an eating show? Do you guys also eat the food in front of each other?
There's no eating. There's no eating part.
Okay,
it's just cooking it.
Okay.
At the end of the show, we'll take a screenshot and we'll take a bite so everybody can see that it was amazing and delicious. But no, there's no eating show. We're not that Asian.
Yeah.
We got a question from the audience. What's the history of kimchi stew?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I should have done more research into
Thousands
it.
of years ago, they took the kimchi out of the pots and they decided they should do it with broth and meat and rice.
Yeah.
It's the best I got.
I would say one thing though is I didn't make my own kimchi. I just haven't had my own kimchi in a while. So I went, and I would say the key that I always really enjoy is, and mine is in here, but I don't want anyone to get thrown off by saying it's my own kimchi. It's not mine. I always prefer like really aged kimchi. I think it's like really, generally no one really makes kimchi stew with like young kimchi. If you do, you probably add like a little bit more vinegar in it to like make it a little bit more acidic. But that's why I think for me, pork or any kind of like fattier meat goes really well with kimchi jjigae because it kind of balances it really well with like the acidity from the kimchi as well. So I have my onions.
So I assume you grew up with it. That's really where you have an affinity.
My history of kimchi jjigae was that I just ate it all the time. My mom would make it, and so it's funny because when I call my mom, I'm like, "Mom, I'm gonna make this kind of food, or I'm gonna make this banchan." Banchan meaning the side dishes that come out at Korean restaurants and Korean tables. And my mom responds, "I'll like let you know, like, don't do this, don't do that." I was like, "Well, I read this online thing that said you should do this." Like this was actually even on Monday. She's like, "Don't ever do that." It's like I made like a dried pollock banchan thing, and she's like, "Don't ever do what that recipe says. They're terrible. Don't ever do that."
So why not?
Well, for the dread pot, like if you actually wet it too much, it'll fall apart and disintegrate.
Oh, okay.
So you need to be very careful about that. But she always goes, I don't even make that much panchan anymore. She goes, I'm too lazy. And she's like, I don't know why you keep doing this. And then one of my best friends is Peter, his mom, his aunt, I was telling her, I love making panchan and stuff. And she was like, do you not have any friends? Like it just all this takes so much time. But to me, I feel like making Korean food, I probably cook 90% Korean food. Really, it's just a way for my brain to shut off and for me just to, work on a task, listen to a podcast, watch a show, do something. So for me, I feel like really started finding my home, not home, like my peace, my time of peace was always in cooking after a while.
Well, most of our chefs submit their recipes a week in advance, so you can see what the ingredients are going to be. And and every Wednesday at 7:00, you can cook along and not have to think about it.
Yeah. I'm also going to prepare some garlic now. I do fall under the boat when they say like, oh, just put in like 2 cloves of garlic. I go, why? Like I want to put in way more. I'm like,
there's no such thing as too much garlic.
Yeah, no, I'm
the same thing when you were talking about half an onion. You can't put in too much onion either.
Yeah. So I like to really, for kimchi jjigae, honestly, I will go between either dicing it or slicing it. But today I think I am a little tired, so I'm gonna slice it instead into thin.
That's all I did. I just sliced mine. I've also experimented in the last year with just doing entire cloves for things that I roast longer.
Oh, like what? Like what food?
Like a roast chicken. I'll put just bed of like large pieces of garlic. I've also done it in different sauces with pasta, and it works great.
So what do you have? Do you have onions already sliced and everything?
I've got everything.
Oh wow! So I'm
my
behind.
stuff's all in here sauteing. I've got my side stuff. I mean, the only thing I haven't figured out what to do yet is my gochujang and kimchi.
Yeah, so there are some recipes that call for gochujang. I actually don't really like using too much gochujang, but you can. Obviously, you can do whatever you want, and there's no true right
I've got
answer.
a bottle here that's almost at the end. I need to use up my gochujang.
But it does add like a little subtle sweetness to it, which is nice. I'm also gonna cook some scallions. I don't know, did you have scallions on hand?
Yep, I already got my scallions diced, and then I have a whole box of gochujang I got to go through.
So I feel bad that I'll tell you. So I live in this new area of Brooklyn I live in. There's not too many Korean places around here. My gochujang is actually it's very, I feel like a poser. It's very small. So normally I try to buy as big as I can, but it's the only thing I could find around here, and it's really expensive with obviously volume pricing. So
Matt, are you intimidated by the size of my gochujang?
Yeah, I am. By the way, for the scallions, you already cut them. I like to put in some of the whites a little earlier, and then I like to cut the greens into like a nice bias, just to make it a bit prettier, especially if I need to take a picture of it. So.
I'm the same way. I think you and I probably have a similar sort of background of like we don't want to waste anything, so I want to use everything I'm cutting up. And for the rougher, more fibrous parts, I let those cook. Mm-hmm. The other things I can throw on at the end for raw, and yeah, they look really pretty.
Yeah, and like I would tell you, like when I first was watching cooking shows, and like that's actually the first time I ever found out that people didn't use the whole part of the scallion, and it was like so weird to me. Like, wait, there are people who throw away parts of the scallion, which was pretty wild to me.
My broth is so rich.
Okay, let me try. Oh, I'll say my second favorite kitchen tool is just like a little ladle holder, so I can get less mess everywhere. But I'll also say that mine is pretty bomb.
So am I putting the gochujang directly into the broth?
Yeah, and I would say honestly, any of the broth, I'd put it in anything that goes like a paste, or the earlier the better. Sometimes if I'm trying to have guests over, I will actually even fry it a little bit, beforehand and then put the broth in, but you don't need to do that.
Yeah, no, that we've covered some of those techniques in some other stuff. I can't remember if it was the gumbo or the jambalaya that we did from Louisiana. We talked about how you actually cook the roux to like a brown. It's the same kind of thing with the gochujang, where it just gives it a little bit of a smokier flavor, kind of opens up, in the case of the gochujang, the spices.
Yeah, it's actually, I mean, it's not surprising, but to me, I like never, my mom, for example, never did anything like that. And then I started following more like Korean American chefs, and everything. They're like, yeah, just like cook it out and see what happens. And yeah, it does give that like just like a deeper, richer flavor for everything. So
I hate to brag, but my broth is like seriously good.
oh wait, let me wait. Oh my god!
Wow!
Oh my god, mine. Oh, it's so good. No, but also mine is great. Makes me very happy that you're enjoying yours as well. I didn't include it in the recipe, but I am gonna add in some jalapeno as well.
The kimchi. I don't put the kimchi in the broth, right? I'm gonna serve that raw at the end.
No, we're gonna cook that down. So the next thing we're gonna put in after you're satisfied with the meat in the broth. Again, the meat in the broth is, I don't think everyone does it. I just like to do it, especially with pork belly. Yeah. We're gonna actually put the kimchi in right after. So I actually cook that down, do the mise en place, and then cut the kimchi. I would say if we have an extra cutting board, I also like to use a second extra cutting board for it, but it does sting pretty intensely. We'll go through it right now if you have the kimchi, but let me cut up some of this jalapeno first.
Oh, don't let me rush you. I'm just asking because I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't know exactly where we are in the process.
Oh yeah, no, we're probably 1% of the number. No, we're. I would say there's one time I was living with my old roommate Kevin, and I was cutting peppers, and I rubbed my eyes, and for some reason I don't know why I rubbed it so hard, and it was blind. It was like I've done it before, but for some reason it was blinding, and I remember I looked over and he was just laughing at me. And
that is not the worst story I can share on that. I was doing peppers. I even washed my hands. I did all the right things. I washed my hands, and then I went to the bathroom. And there was still some like underneath my fingernails, just enough. And when your crotch has been jalapenoed, that's how you know.
Oh
yeah, you're alive.
I feel like no matter what you do, like as I've gone through the crotch experience as well, I just feel like after that, no matter, even if I wash it intensely, I'm still kind of scared. Like, no, regardless, I'm always just like, hey, I just have too much PTSD. So I'm just like, okay, let me wait like 4 days and then like be like a surgeon and scrub it like this and walk around. So, kimchi time. Is your kimchi ready? Is yours already chopped up?
Yep.
Then you can just put it straight in if it's already chopped up. So the notes of this for anyone watching is, I don't know. It smells like kimchi.
So did you learn to cook this while you were with when you were growing up, or was this one of those things like you realized you had to leave the house and you're like, oh shit, I don't know how to cook?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because when I was trying to cook when I was obviously in high school and, with my mom, she just wouldn't, I don't know, maybe it's just like, old school Korean way. She just wouldn't really I'm like, how do you do that? She's like, I don't. Yeah, she's like, I don't. No, I don't need. Why are you asking this stuff? Like, get out of the kitchen. But like, I remember like, to me, I think what my mom really taught me in cooking is much more obviously a more recent thing. But to me, I think the smells are really what I go off, like the memory of like, okay, if I taste something or as I'm cooking, I smell it. I'm like, okay, this kind of reminds me of the smell like when my mom was making the stew and everything. That's actually what kind of kept me going. But I actually didn't get really into either Korean culture or cooking too much until like 2015, 2016 maybe. And then there was like a point where I just like started losing a ton of weight. And then I was like, you know what, I like made a decision. I'm just gonna get really into cooking. Hey Shiloh. So I was like, I'm gonna get really into cooking and that's how I'm gonna lose weight. And then that was maybe five-ish years ago where I started really just going at it. And I can show my knife collection, but I do like to buy knives. And I was telling people, I was like, hey, I'm going on this thing. And it was funny because I had mentioned, like, I like collecting knives and cooking. And then the first response was, like hunting knives. And I was like, oh, so I was like, well, I said cooking right after, but then last time I was hanging with my friend, and she was like, well, like it could, a lot of people won't assume just kitchen knives. But
What's
for
your
the
dog's
kimchi,
name?
Shiloh.
My last dog was also named Shiloh, and my dog Callie is right here hanging out under my feet. Where are you? Right there.
Yeah, I've gotten really good at the whole knee and move out the way, just like this method. But I did move this, so normally this island would be this way, so it wouldn't be right here. But anyways, I'm gonna cut up my kimchi. So the thing whenever I make my own kimchi is I can tell it's like a little more translucent. Like once the kimchi gets more translucent, that's when I know it's like ready to make kimchi jjigae. So I'm gonna put the kimchi into the stew.
This is also one of those meals that's going to be better like the next couple of days too, as all the flavors sort of work around in it as well.
Oh yeah, it's funny that my sister gets really finicky about anything left out, but I will leave the kimchi stew in the pot, and then the next morning I'll boil it again, and then I'm gonna eat it for dinner the next day, and I'll boil it again, and I just keep boiling it, several times a day, especially during a pandemic. And then it's funny when I told her that, she was like, "Oh, you mean like how mom does it?" I just feel like that's honestly the best way. It's over time, you just keep cooking more and more, and it gets tastier and tastier. I would say also, generally, on any kimchi stew, err on the side of more kimchi than you think you need. That's like the big thing I've learned is, you want to really just cook all the juices out of it as well. And then now I actually like to add a little bit of brine. So it's going to be hard. I don't think you can see it, but I'm going to add some of the brine in now. And I did in the recipe call for a little bit of sugar. And that's because if you think it's a little too acidic, you can put like a little pinch of sugar in. But I would definitely say taste it and see what you think, and then put a little pinch of sugar in if you think it's going to be a little too acidic.
Well, this is where we're going for the umami, right? We want all those different, the sour, the sweet, the savory, and a little bit to just balance it all.
I would say this kimchi is great. So yay for store-bought kimchi, because this kimchi tastes awesome. Right. So the other thing is when I make kimchi, it comes out really bad. I will not eat it until it's really fermented, maybe like several months, because the way you deal with bad kimchi, at least in my opinion, is that you just get it really old and toss into a stew, and you're like, wow, this is great stew. So that's like kimchi. I'm always like, it's genius, because if it's really good, obviously you can eat it its entire life, and it's bad, you're like, I'll just forget about it. And a few months later, I look at it, I'm like, okay, it's time for stew.
Well, back to we were talking about history earlier. That is actually the history of stews: is meat or vegetables that have gone bad. You just kind of throw them all together in a mush, and it's like, well, there you go. It's seasoned. You can't tell anymore.
Oh yeah, so like I would see my mushrooms. Some of them become a little bit. I'm like, oh, they're getting a little old. I will just toss everything into here, and they're like, is that kimchi stew? I'm like, yes, like kimchi stew plus like everything else that you normally would have in kimchi stew. And so here, I'm gonna let this actually cook down a little bit. I'll turn this up. And I'm at the same time, do you have tofu?
No, I do not have tofu. That was not.
So I'm actually gonna put in tofu now, and I'm actually gonna cut it, but I will definitely take a photo of this later. And I have this thing. So that's my tattoo. This like little black bowl. I have this. You've probably seen this at Korean restaurants.
Yep.
Is that I'm gonna slice him this way so that I can present it and take a photo of it, since my mom.
You're making it fancy.
But normally I would probably cube it into 1/2-inch cubes ish. Normally, let me see how much I have. And then also at this state, I would also let me make it better. I would put do you have gochugaru, like the powder?
Do I have what?
The Korean red pepper powder, gochugaru.
No, I don't.
Oh, so thank God you have the gochujang then. At this state, I normally put in, I don't know, a tablespoon of fine gochugaru. And I don't know if anyone's curious about storage of it. I always have my mom put this in the freezer So I put all of my gochugaru and like all my powder stuff in the freezer.
So spices lose their potency over time. So when you put it in the freezer, it slows that down.
Oh, yeah. I just remember all like
that one actually is backed up by it's not. That's not an old wives' tale.
It's because if generally even if you open my freezer now, it's funny because I get reminiscent because it's like I don't have much yet, but it's like dried anchovies, I have more, but whenever I open my fridge after right before I moved, I was like, oh, it reminds me of home because our freezer when you open it, it just has just a lot of great umami smell, let's say. The one other thing that's purely optional, why I also didn't include it at all in the recipe, is this is salted shrimp. It's called tablespoon, and I'll put it right here.
That I do have.
Oh, you do have that? That's actually pretty incredible that you do have that.
I have both pork sung and shrimp powder.
Yeah. So this one, I like to put a little bit in it. This stuff is super potent, and actually, I would show people because
it does not smell good.
Yeah, and this actually makes people always freak out a little bit, but they're actually just like tiny little. It's like krill, and then salted. So I like to put a little bit of this in instead of salt, but I know that this is not maybe going to be the most easily accessible ingredient for most people.
I have some other recipes where I always keep a bag of the shells that I deshell from shrimp whenever I'm cooking them, and then I use the shells to render for shrimp broth.
Yeah, I when I was moving out, I get always too ambitious, and so my freezer looks like a graveyard because it's just bones of everything I've done, or shells, and I was like, oh, I didn't really cook these out in time. I didn't really use them. But when I was moving out, I was like, I'm gonna just toss these. I felt terrible tossing them, but I was like, looks like a graveyard in here.
I don't keep the bones. When I make certain soups, I'll cook everything with the bones and then toss them. But I don't. Other than that, I don't actually keep the bones unless it's purposeful.
Oh yeah, and then the other thing though is I'm gonna put in the garlic and onions now. My broth is tasting pretty rich. It's a little acidic, so I'm gonna put in a little dash of sugar soon. But I'm gonna put in the onions and the garlic now. Also, random side note is that my old apartment had a very shallow sink. I didn't have a dishwasher, and so now I don't know if everyone like New York City life is like you're gonna have what you want in an apartment, you're gonna miss something. And so I went from an apartment that had a mini dishwasher. Two apartments ago I had a mini dishwasher and an in-unit washer dryer, to an apartment that had a dishwasher with no in-unit, and then to an apartment with none of those. So I was living there for about 2 years, and if I left 2 dishes in the sink, right now I have my whole cutting board in here and other stuff, and look fine because it's a deeper sink. My old apartment, if you put 1 cup in there, I just was getting anxiety where I'll be like, I just don't want to even look at it right now. I don't even have a dish. I have nothing. It was the worst. It was just the worst. Also, one thing I'm gonna put in the scallions now as well, the thicker parts as well. One thing though is if you do want to make it prettier, is if you put scallions in early, which I'm just gonna do anyways, is that they start to turn dark green. And so I do know if you will hold it for a later part to give them a fresher color to kind of look prettier when you serve it. Oh, that's actually pretty good. I'm gonna put that sugar in now a little bit. Wow, that's pretty good. How are you doing? What's your looking up to?
I'm all ready.
Oh, you're done?
Yep.
So normally what I would do after this is if I had time, I would just keep letting this stew again, and you can do it tomorrow. It's longer and longer.
Well, you can do it repeatedly each day as you continue to boil it, and
Yeah.
boil it, and boil it.
I'm gonna put in some jalapenos now as well, but I'm gonna save some for again presentation and topping later.
Yeah.
And then I do have also coarse gochugaru, the powder. I have coarse and fine. I can use a coarse to also make it prettier as well. But I think they're virtually just identical. But I mean, after this, I essentially, oh, and then one thing I will sometimes add is, I'm not gonna do it today for where it's salted. I'll put a little bit of soy sauce in it. But there also is a thing called soup soy sauce. I don't know if it's very common in other cultures, but in Korean culture, there's like it's like lighter, actually a little saltier as well. I don't know why it is. I think it's like the aging or something. And so I'll use that and put it in here a little bit. And then make it, that's like kind of will bring the salt level perfect. But because I put this in, I'm gonna skip it, but you can definitely put a little soy sauce in it. It'll just look a little darker if you use regular soy sauce versus like soup soy sauce. And the one thing I'll also do if you have sesame seed oil is I'll put very little into it. That's like the key is like if you, especially in stews, if you put anything beyond, I like to put like a few drops in, like 5 drops. Because anything beyond that will just be overpowering.
Yep, I've got sesame oil. Actually, I'm almost out.
And so yeah, normally, if anyone wants to make kimchi stew later, is that the way after I put the onions in, the way I know it's done is that this onion is like pretty white right now. I usually wait until the onions are pretty translucent, and then that's when I know I'm done. And I'm going to put in the tofu now as well. Yeah, I'm curious because you went with ground beef. You added a mirepoix. How's your flavor profile coming out?
Perfect.
Just perfect? Like, so I'm curious. I've
got great umami. I mean, I don't know what to. It's good. I can't really describe it. I mean, it's all the different flavors. I mean, there's a lot going on in there.
Yeah, I would say like if I had a dream job, it would be to go and eat and write about it. But then I was like, I'm really bad at explaining, or I'm not the best writer as well, and I wouldn't be great at translating that into a worthwhile article.
I wouldn't want to do food for a living because it's like food for fun. It's what I do. It's what I enjoy. It's what I like making with friends and family. And having to do that as a job just takes away from that.
Oh, so there was a point where I felt like, so I'm almost 30, but like I feel like in your mid-20s, you're just always like, even in your entire 20s, I don't know, I'm still here. You're just like in flux and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life all the time. And so at one point I was seriously looking into like applying culinary school, and I was looking at how much it would cost. And then I think one of the advices that like one of our family friends told me was like, dude, if you enjoy it's a hobby, don't ever do that. And I like after that I was like, okay, I know. But I'll tell you my dream job when I retire is still just like own just like nice B&B where I can also just cook for fun and have it as my side gig. And you know, host people and do fun things.
So you're 29?
Yeah. No, I don't know. I felt like there was some judgment in that.
Oh no. I remember when I was in my 20s. And the way you're describing it is the way everybody in their 20s does, and you're not ready for all the other things that are coming.
Yeah,
we all go through the same phases of life at roughly the same speed.
I feel blessed because I had a sister who's 10 years older than me, who I remember I was like just going through a hard time, you know, and she was like, look, your 20s suck. She's like, everyone thinks you're like super. She's like, I just like didn't have the best time. Like your 30s are actually just much better. And I feel like being the youngest, I feel like was very, obviously it made my whole life easier. Yeah. And just having her go like, hey, by the way, your life is gonna suck in your 20s, but at least you're not as broke as I was. And I was like, oh, okay, I don't feel as bad. So I don't know. Are you done? I'm nearly done.
Yeah, I'm all ready. I'm ready to plate.
All right, I'm gonna plate up.
All right, we're plating. I want to see how fancy this gets. You've been talking about all of the aesthetic choices that you've been making.
Oh, geez, now I regret ever doing that because I should have downplayed it more.
Yep, that is, dude. Life, most of life is expectation management.
Yeah.
And if you're like, wow, it's going to be here, and then when it's here, it's like, hey, wow, that's amazing. And then if you're like, you shoot here and it's here, well,
No, it's funny because before this current, I worked at a company called Octopart, the search engine for electronic components. So shout out to them, great company. I remember in sales, it was like expectation management was like, it was just so weird because you're trying to be a salesperson. You're like, we're going to deliver you the best solution ever, right? But it's also like, managing like what they're going to expect. And then I'd always try to find that balance of, hey, I'm going to deliver something great. And then, so then once our product does deliver, that it's going to be so much greater than what they thought. But I always find it like a tricky line to, I'm sorry. So I just walked it.
you just hit your dog.
Yeah. This just in. Let me actually transfer this over.
I'm excited for the big reveal here.
Oh, dude, don't be excited. Oh, it looks really bad.
I don't believe you. I think you're backpedaling now.
Oh, I am 100%. I am.
Your tofu looks pretty.
Thank you. The one thing I've always been curious about is making tofu from scratch at home. I feel like that would be pretty intense.
I don't know, isn't it? I mean, I feel like that'd be a similar process to like making cheese, right? You're fermenting something under controlled conditions.
Oh yeah, I mean, I do want to, but I just feel like that's the next level of if you went to someone like, yeah, I hand make my tofu. I feel like that'd be just the next.
I don't know. It sounds kind of douchey. I hand bake my tofu. Yeah, you know what? I buy it in a shop.
Oh, that's the one thing is that people ask me like, oh, do you think like store made kimchi is worse? Like, no, it's probably way better than what I'll ever make anyway. So I don't care.
You do got me beat. You have the fancy Korean pot. I don't have that. I just have regular white ceramic.
I will definitely recommend people to. This is really cheap. It's called a tukbegi. It's really cheap.
How do you pronounce it?
Tukbegi. It's very cheap, but I have an induction. And I realized like the induction doesn't really work that well with clay pots, so it's kind of sad. I'm actually trying to make it like my tattoo. Just a little bit.
All right. Yeah.
Scallions. Put in the middle.
I mean, they're not that cheap.
Yeah. And one thing. Let me just finish this. And then the last thing, actually, I always is, oh God, so far. Some sesame seeds. Always would recommend topping with sesame seeds.
Dang it. That was going to be one of my tricks. I already had them. But to make them even fancier, I have the tuxedo sesame seeds because I like the white and black alternate.
Oh, wow.
You caught me. That was going to be one of the things because I knew when you presented, I was like, he doesn't have sesame seeds. I got him beat.
Oh, wait. Actually, now, because you told me that, which is your big mistake, let me also put some black on there.
Come on, Chef.
All right. Sorry. All right. Here.
You ready?
Again, I will have to lower this.
Yep. Nope. You got to get in the shot with it.
Okay. I'm going to do an awkward squat, but no one knows I'm doing an awkward squat.
That's all right. The Asian squat.
Wait. Right here.
We got it. Now the bite.
Oh, wait.
The truth. Yeah, yum.
I would say I would eat this anytime.
Oh, you're eating it again tomorrow too.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, any last words of wisdom you want to share with the audience?
I don't know. More people should eat and buy more Korean food. And I don't know if, especially if you're in industrial control systems or ICS, reach Utopia, automation, obviously. So I gotta give that shout out. But no, one in particular is that I do want more people to kind of get well known with Korean food. That's not just Korean barbecue. I think Korean barbecue is a great entry point, but I think there's just so much more variety in Korean food than people understand. But no, I mean, I really appreciate you having me on. I thought it was fun, and I was glad to, talk about, like a hobby, passionate hobby of mine, which is cooking. So.
Well, thanks for joining us. Our charity tonight, again, was raising money for the World Central Kitchen in Ukraine. I posted the link in the chat. It's the swag.scythe.io, and there's a Ukrainian section. So you can get Ukrainian unicorn stickers to donate to what's going on over there. Hashtag Unicorn Chef, share what you make. We like to see it because it's always fun to see how it comes out differently. And we are on every week at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So every week, something's going to be coming up. Next show is with Bree and Caitlin, which is the 16th. And since Bree already put in a recipe, she is going to be making lamb burgers. So talking about how to make burgers with lamb, which that sounds really delicious. So catch you next week.
Awesome. Thanks again.